You know, there comes a point in life, usually somewhere around retirement, when you start to realize that you've spent most of your years putting others first. Whether it was your job, your children, your spouse, or just trying to keep the peace in difficult situations, you've held your tongue, suppressed your wants, and gone along with things just to make life easier for everyone else. And maybe that made sense back then. Maybe it felt like the right thing to do. But now is different. When you're older, when you've walked through the storms of life and come out the other side, you no longer owe anyone your silence or your sacrifice. That's why I believe that when you're in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, you don't need to put up with things that make you uncomfortable anymore. Not from anyone. And that includes your own children. It's not that we don't love our kids. Of course we do. We gave them our youth, our energy, our sleepless nights. We raised them with everything we had. We went without so they could have more. We showed up for them in ways they may never fully understand. But love should never mean surrendering your identity. And if your adult children can't respect your boundaries or your independence, then it's okay to draw a line. Some of us reach this age and still feel obligated to comply with our kids' expectations. They want us to behave a certain way, live a certain way, and even spend our time and money a certain way, just to make them feel more comfortable. But here's the truth. This is your life, not theirs. If you want to take a trip by yourself or with someone special, do it. If you feel like buying something just for you, a new recliner, a dress you like, a nicer meal at a restaurant, go ahead and enjoy it. You're not required to explain or apologize. I know many seniors who hold back from doing what they love because their children might disapprove. They think, oh, I better not buy this. It might seem like I'm wasting money. Or, I probably shouldn't go out so much. My son thinks I should be resting more. But let me ask you this. How long are we going to keep shrinking ourselves to please others? You have every right to spend the rest of your years embracing what makes you happy. And if your kids don't like that, if they say you're being difficult or stubborn or not acting like a typical parent, that's their problem. You can listen to their opinions, but you don't have to follow them. You've lived long enough to trust your own wisdom. You've earned that. Don't give up your joy just to avoid stepping on someone else's toes. And if you happen to meet someone new, maybe even find love again in your later years, don't let your children's disapproval stop you. I know that's a sensitive subject. Some kids get uncomfortable when their parents start dating again after being widowed or divorced. But you deserve companionship. You deserve to feel seen, appreciated, and loved, whether that comes from a partner, a friend, or even just your own company. If your children can't accept that, it's something they need to work through, not you. You see, when we keep enduring things we no longer need to, whether it's criticism, pressure, or guilt, we rob ourselves of the peace we worked so hard to reach. Peace is the prize of old age, and you should never sacrifice it, not even for family. Now, this kind of thinking doesn't just apply to children. It also applies to extended family. Let's be honest, sometimes dealing with relatives can be exhausting. Holidays, reunions, family dinners, they sound lovely on paper. But in reality, they can be full of comparisons, gossip, judgment, and drama. It's not uncommon to leave these gatherings feeling worse than when you arrived. Maybe someone makes a comment about how small your apartment is, or jokes about your retirement budget. Maybe they roll their eyes when you mention a health issue or dismiss your opinions. And the worst part? They think they're being helpful or just saying it like it is. Let me tell you, just because someone shares your bloodline doesn't mean you owe them emotional access. You don't need to keep showing up to family events where you're made to feel less than. You're not obligated to answer invasive questions or laugh at cruel jokes. You can simply say no. No to lending money you can't afford to lose. No to visits that leave you emotionally drained. No to staying connected just for appearances. Some relatives will call you distant or unfriendly. Let them. The ones who truly love you won't need explanations. They'll understand your need for peace. They'll respect your space. And those are the only relationships worth keeping in this chapter of life. And what about friendships? Because just like family, not all friends are meant to stay forever. At this age, your circle doesn't need to be wide. It needs to be real. There are people you've known for decades, old friends from work, neighbors, childhood buddies. But over time, you begin to see who's genuinely in your corner and who's just there out of habit. Maybe you've noticed that some friends don't really listen when you talk. Maybe they only reach out when they need something or make passive-aggressive comments that don't sit right. You brush it off at first, but deep down it stings. Well, let me give you permission. You're allowed to walk away from those friendships. A good friend should bring you comfort, not stress. They should lift you up, not wear you down. If someone constantly makes you feel small or overlooked, it's okay to step back. You don't have to keep calling, texting, inviting, or explaining. And you certainly don't have to tolerate being disrespected just to keep the peace. Now, that doesn't mean we need to be rude or shut people out completely. It just means we choose to spend our limited energy on people who bring light into our lives. Because energy becomes more precious with age. You don't have to waste yours on superficial connections or fake smiles. Don't force conversations you don't want to have. Don't agree to lunch with people you dread seeing. Don't pretend to be someone you're not. If a friendship feels like work, it's no longer a friendship, it's a burden. And at this point in life, you've earned the right to travel light. You're not here to perform for others. You're here to live fully, freely, and truthfully. Now, once you've let go of the need to please everyone, you start to see more clearly the kind of people who drain your spirit. And let me tell you, just because we're older doesn't mean we're immune to toxic people. If anything, sometimes they hide better. They smile in your face, ask how you're doing, pretend to care. But behind that kindness, there's a pattern. Little remarks that make you feel small, actions that twist your trust, questions that feel like traps. So today, I want to talk about 4 types of people you should avoid, especially in this season of life. If you recognize anyone in what I'm about to share, don't ignore it. Don't make excuses for them. It's okay to create space. It's okay to walk away. And more importantly, it's okay to protect your peace. The first type? The ones who pry into your personal life like it's some sort of game. You know the type. Maybe it's a neighbor who always seems just a little too curious. Or that old friend who always shows up when something's wrong, not to help, but to gather details. They act concerned when you're struggling with a family issue, but you know they're fishing. If you've been in a disagreement with your adult child, they'll say, "So what exactly happened?" And then they repeat it to others in whispers and half-truths. I remember someone like this in my friend Margaret's life. Margaret had gone through a painful divorce in her early 60s, and there was one woman from church who always checked in, not to offer comfort, but to snoop. She'd ask, "How are things going with that lawyer of yours?" Or, "Have you heard from your ex lately?" And then twist every answer into gossip that made Margaret look unstable or bitter. You see, people like that don't want to support you, they want to study you. And the moment you give them something personal, you're handing them a tool they can use against you. So what do? You protect yourself. You don't have to be rude, just vague. Give short answers. Change the subject. And most importantly, never forget this. You do not owe anyone the details of your life, especially not the ones who will weaponize your vulnerability. The second type? People who talk behind your back, but smile to your face. Let's say you made a decision recently. Maybe you chose to move into a smaller home. Maybe you started dating again, or maybe you had a small disagreement with a mutual friend. These kinds of people will never say anything to your face, but the moment you're not in the room, they're telling the story with their own spin on it. And don't be fooled. What they say can be damaging. They plant seeds of doubt. They start rumors. They make others question your intentions, your values, even your sanity. And the worst part? It's usually based on partial truth and whole lies. There was a woman I knew. Her name was Linda. She worked for over 30 years in education. After she retired, her son bought her a used Lexus as a gift to thank her for everything she'd done. It was thoughtful. It was generous. But you wouldn't believe how quickly someone at her old job started whispering, "I heard she's seeing someone wealthy. or she must have won a lawsuit or something. One woman even said, there's no way she could afford that car on a teacher's pension. None of it was true. And it didn't matter, because by the time Linda heard the rumor, the damage was already done. People had already formed opinions. So here's the lesson. If someone talks about others behind their backs to you, they'll do the same about you to someone else. Real friends bring concerns directly to you. They don't build drama behind your back. If you spot this kind of behavior, don't engage. Don't retaliate. Just quietly pull away. Let your silence speak louder than their gossip. The third type of toxic person? Those who can't stand to see you doing well. This one's tricky, because sometimes these people are the ones you least expect. They might be family. They might be someone who was there for you when things were hard. But the moment your life improves, even just a little, they change. Their congratulations feel forced. Their compliments come with a backhand. They make sarcastic remarks, question your choices, or try to diminish your joy. You know what that is? That's envy. I had a friend named Susan who spent most of her life working as a nurse. Kind-hearted, always there for everyone. She'd been single for years, and then in her late 60s, she met a wonderful man named Peter. They hit it off instantly. He was kind, respectful, and genuinely adored her. A few months later, she introduced him to her cousin Donna. Donna smiled through dinner, said all the right things, and the next day sent Susan a text that read, "Just be careful. Men like him don't usually go for women like us." Susan was crushed, but she eventually realized that Donna wasn't concerned. She was jealous. She couldn't accept that someone close to her had found happiness she didn't have. And the sad truth is, some people will always find a way to bring you down just so they feel better about themselves. But don't let their bitterness poison your joy. Don't dim your light just because someone else is struggling in the dark. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your joy, not just sympathize with your pain. And finally, the fourth kind of person to steer clear of, the ones who add fuel to the fire when you're already hurting. In life, we all face setbacks, health scares, financial stress, family problems. And during those times, you discover something powerful. Who's really on your side? There are people who will sit with you, hold your hand, and offer comfort, even if they don't have all the answers. And then there are the others. The ones who show up just to judge, criticize, or make it worse. They might pretend to offer advice, but it's laced with blame or sarcasm. They say things like, "Well, if you hadn't done this," or "I knew this would happen." They don't lift you up, they push you further down. There was a man named Harold. He lost a good chunk of his savings to a bad investment in his early 70s. It was a painful blow, something he didn't see coming. Most of his friends offered support, shared their own money mistakes, helped him feel less alone. But one so-called friend, let's call him Jerry, just couldn't help himself. Every time they spoke, Jerry would say things like, "You should have seen that coming," or "I guess you're not as sharp as you used to be." That's not a friend. That's someone who takes joy in your downfall. And people like that have no place in your life. Not now, not ever. You see, when times are good, everyone wants to be around. But when you're in pain, that's when the truth comes out. Don't forget who showed up with kindness and who showed up with matches. After everything you've been through, the sacrifices, the setbacks, the silent battles, the long nights, you've earned something priceless. The right to live your life on your own terms. No more shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's mold. No more walking on eggshells to avoid judgment. No more bending over backwards just to be seen as agreeable or easy to get along with. You don't owe the world that anymore. You never did, really. But now, at this age, you get to reclaim it. Let me say it clearly. You have nothing left to prove. You don't have to attend every gathering out of obligation. You don't have to engage in conversations that drain your spirit. You don't need to force a smile for people who don't genuinely care about your well-being. And you certainly don't need to explain yourself to anyone who hasn't walked in your shoes. There will always be people who think you're too distant, too stubborn, too private, too picky. Let them think it. Your life is not a public performance. You're not here to be liked by everyone. You're here to be you. Now, living for yourself doesn't mean you stop caring about others. It doesn't mean shutting out your loved ones or refusing to compromise in relationships. It means you learn where the line is. You understand your limits, your needs, and your worth, and you honor those things with pride. That might mean spending more time alone with a good book and less time in forced conversations. It might mean gardening instead of small talk, silence over noise, a walk by the lake over a stressful family dinner. And that's okay. You don't have to justify your joy to anyone. And maybe someone will say you've changed. Maybe they'll say you're not who you used to be. But that's the point. You're not. You've grown. You've evolved. And now, more than ever, you deserve a life that reflects that growth. You know, I once heard someone say, getting older is like editing your contacts list in real life. And it's true. As the years go by, the people who truly matter become clearer. So does what really matters. Peace matters. Authenticity matters. Time well spent matters. The rest? You can let it fall away. You no longer need to force connections that don't feel right. You don't need to act like everything's fine when it's not. And you don't have to feel guilty for choosing yourself, especially when choosing yourself means choosing calm, choosing dignity, and choosing joy. And remember, drawing boundaries doesn't make you cold. It makes you wise. Holding space for yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you strong. Letting go of toxic people, toxic habits, toxic guilt, none of that makes you difficult. It makes you free. So, if you want to spend your days traveling, go. If you want to stay home and watch old westerns, do it. If you want to start painting again, learn the piano, fall in love, sleep in, or spend your entire afternoon doing nothing but listening to the wind outside your window. That's your call. This is your season. You've earned it, every moment of it. Let others misunderstand you. Let them whisper if they must. You don't live in their shadows. You live in the light of everything you've survived, everything you built, and everything you still have left to become. So stop asking for permission. You don't need anyone's approval to feel happy. You don't need a round of applause to do what brings you peace. And you certainly don't need to wait for the world to validate your worth. It's already within you. From now on, let your days be filled with what nourishes your soul. Let your heart lead. Let your smile be real. Let your choices reflect the beautiful truth that life doesn't end after 70. It begins again, in a whole new way. You're not here to serve everyone else's expectations anymore. You're here to live. So live boldly, live freely, and above all, live gently with yourself. Because the world may not always understand, but you will, and that's enough. So as we wrap up today's message, I want you to take a deep breath and really let this settle in. You have spent decades giving, loving, sacrificing, and showing up for others. And now this chapter, this sacred, quiet, beautiful chapter, is for you. Not for proving, not for pleasing, but for being at peace, being authentic, being exactly who you are, without apology. Let go of the guilt. Let go of the noise. Let go of the people who only show up when it's convenient. What matters now is how you feel when you open your eyes in the morning. What matters is the calm in your heart when you close them at night. So walk lighter. Speak honestly. Laugh when you feel like laughing. Rest when you need to. You've earned every bit of freedom that comes with growing older. And if no one else has told you this lately, let me be the one to say it now. You are enough. Just as you are, right here, right now. Don't spend another day living for anyone else's comfort. This life, this moment belongs to you. So go live it. So as we close, I just want to remind you, this time in your life is not about enduring anymore. It's about enjoying. It's about choosing peace over pressure, truth over tolerance, and joy over judgment. You don't have to carry the weight of other people's opinions. You don't have to shrink for anyone. You've earned the right to live fully and freely. And if something in this video resonated with you, If you've ever felt that quiet ache of always putting yourself last, then I hope today reminded you. You matter. Your happiness matters. And it's never too late to protect your peace. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who drained your spirit? Or learned to put yourself first, even when it was hard? Share your story in the comments. I read every one, and your wisdom might be just what someone else needs to hear today. And if this message brought you comfort or strength, please give it a like, share it with a friend who might need it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're building a gentle, thoughtful space here, where age is honored, voices are heard, and no one has to walk alone. Thanks for spending your time with me today. Take care of yourself and live your life your way. We'll see you in the next video.